Hello everyone. Now that the orders were created in Part 1, dispatched and ready for delivery in Part 2, it's time to move on to pre-sales field operations through SDX Mobility. SDX Mobility encompasses all stages of pre-sales field operations, from access setup and real-time data and message access, to order management, delivery, collection, and asset management. The customer representative is the key persona responsible for these field operations. The customer representative is an order taker, delivery man, collector, and asset checker. After leaving the distribution center, he begins customer visits. During these visits, he delivers the orders directly to customers. As part of our scenario, he will collect payments from the customer. Additionally, he will check and manage the assets within the store. After successfully signing in, the landing screen is the dashboard, where I have access to valuable insights and charts. Let's take a look at the bottom nav bar. I have the Home tab. The Catalog tab gives me access to all items in my truck and the distribution center. The Customers tab shows both scheduled for today and unscheduled customers. And in the Expenses tab, I can add route expenses during my visits. Back to the Home tab to start my day by clicking on the Start My Day button. In the Start Day screen, I'm presented with information, including my journey details. I check my messages sent from within the system, so I can proceed with my Start Day process. Next, we have the Start Day odometer. This is where I have access to my vehicle information. I enter my current odometer reading, and then click on the Confirm button. This is the loadout screen, where all the items to be delivered to customers are displayed along with the load number and load sheet number. Now I'm waiting for the warehouse keeper's notification that the items are loaded onto my truck, so I can proceed with my out process. Back to the warehouse keeper. After finishing the load, I select the load and click the load button to notify the customer representative that the truck is loaded and ready to leave the distribution center. Back to the CR. Now that the button is active, it's time for me to check and validate that all the items are loaded in my truck. I confirm the load by clicking on the Confirm and Continue button. This is the generated loadout report displaying the load information, and I can also print it as a PDF. Now I need to leave the DC, so the next checkpoint is the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is responsible for logging the exact times of each vehicle's entry and exit from the distribution center. He validates vehicle information to ensure all details are accurate. Periodically, he conducts random inspections of vehicles and their loads. At the start of the day, he logs the exit time when the driver leaves the distribution center. Upon the driver's return, he logs the entry time to record when the vehicle arrives back at the distribution center. So now, as a gatekeeper, I should approve the vehicle information to allow the customer representative to head to the market. Back to the CR, I can now proceed to the market and perform my visits. Typically, I start my visits by clicking on the Start button. However, in any emergency situations, I have the option to return to the DC and end my day by clicking the End My Day button. Now let's start the visits. This is the list of customers scheduled for today's visits, listed in the correct sequence. I select the first customer. The card expands, providing me with the customer's profile details, such as credit limit, remaining balance, and the last visit date. I have access to the order history when I click the History button. I check the messages. The CCO has asked me to check all the assets for this customer. When I arrive at the store, I'll start my visit by clicking the Check-in button. Each customer is provided with a barcode that I must scan during the visit. If I can't scan the barcode, I'll select the appropriate reason from a predefined list. Here I have access to orders, invoices, payment, as well as equipment management. We will now show the various operations. I will start my visit by clicking on Invoices card to deliver the order. So this is the list of items that I need to unload from my truck. We have the sales items and the items that were granted from promotions. And next we have the returns. Back to the main screen. I need to collect the payment, so I click on the payment card. Because this customer is a credit customer, he's not required to make immediate payment, but upon his request, he wants to pay in cash for the invoice delivered today to maintain his credit limit. This customer wants to pay $200. I click on the next button to allocate this amount on the invoice. This is the invoice to be allocated. I will enter the amount of $200 inside the invoice card and click on Pay button. This way, the customer has paid $200 out of the $306 total invoice amount. Now after the payment is collected, I click on the next button to be redirected to the main screen. I remembered that I received a message to check the assets of this customer, so I click on the equipment card. The number of assets within the store is displayed. The page is blank on purpose as a control, so the CR will actively search for and validate the assets. While searching, I found a small cooler. I will add it to the screen. I need to add the asset's serial number and location. The cooler status now shows as audited since I checked it during this visit. Back on the main screen, if the customer wants to place an order, I click on the orders card. This process was already covered in order creation part. Next, I review the summary of my visit, print all the necessary reports, and check all relevant information. Once everything is complete, I click the next button and check out from this customer. Let's say I have some extra time and want to check on an unscheduled customer, maybe to inspect their assets, collect payments, or try to secure an order. I can click on the Unscheduled tab and add the customer to my schedule. Now the customer will be listed under the scheduled customers. Let's say I've finished my day. I click on the next button and now need to return to my DC. When I arrive at my DC's gate, I click on the End Day menu to start my end-of-day process. First, I will generate the load-in. The load-in is the list of items returned to the DC, including normal or damaged goods, empties, pallets, and more. In our scenario, I delivered all the items to my customers and I have one return item. Now I need the gatekeeper to validate my arrival, and then the warehouse keeper to validate my load-in. Back to the gatekeeper. I need to approve that this CR has returned to the distribution center. So, I select his load-in and click on Approve button. Back to Ronnie the warehouse keeper. I select the load sheet and approve that this CR only has this item in the truck. I click the Commit button. Then I click on the Unload button to unload the item from the truck, so the CR can continue with the end-of-day process. Back to Brian the customer representative. After confirming that the item is unloaded from my truck, I must enter my current odometer reading. Lastly, I handle the unserved customers. The customers scheduled for today but not visited are listed, and I need to provide a reason for each by clicking on the icon. And when I click on the next button, I will be redirected back to the home screen, marking the end of my field operations. This wraps up the mobility part. To summarize, in this part we covered the full range of field operations using SDX Mobility. We started with the start day overview, proceeded through the customer visits, deliveries, and payments, and finally wrapped up the day by returning to the distribution center. Each step ensured efficient and accurate handling of all field operations, preparing us for the end-of-day operations process. Thank you for watching the pre-sales field operations through SDX Mobility demo. Next, we'll dive into the end-of-day operations.